I'll be honest, I feel like it's been a pretty ridiculous few days for Liverpool. Probably not actually for the club themselves, though, obviously for the club themselves. And at the same time, certainly for the fan base online. When Zubimendi decided not to come to Liverpool, a lot of people had a meltdown. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Sorry, I've been sick for the last couple of days, so I've not been able to actually cover Zubimendi. The evening it cracked off, etc., wasn't great. Anyway, Zubimendi decided to remain in Real Sociedad, which for many Liverpool fans, including myself, felt quite disappointing at the time. But as we get further and further away, I think there are 3 or 4 reasons and 3 or 4 big learnings that I've taken from A, this transfer saga, but B, also just being a fan under an FSG ownership. And I want to talk a little bit about that because, believe me, I've taken a lot of time to watch other people's reactions, other people's blaming, finger pointing, all those kind of things, and people looking for someone to blame, and maybe rightly so. Like, if you feel that your team, which I do, is on the edge of challenging for a title, and you think there are a couple of tweaks, missing pieces, or possibly even just slight adjustments that you can make to the team to have a massive difference, especially after such a dominant era of Man City and Liverpool in that time, both just being so dominant, then of course your frustration is going to be there when you think this was the guy to do that. First of all, I don't think Martin Zubimendi would have been the only signing that would have changed that for Liverpool. But I certainly think that he would have made a difference to the team, especially after the few days before that. I think a lot of people wouldn't have said that he was that player. A lot of people would have said he was very good. A lot of people would have said Martin Zubimendi is certainly a player who would be Premier League ready. But I don't think many people profiled Zubimendi at the very top of Liverpool's transfer list. Now, I get it. I actually do think Liverpool are just a couple of pieces away, possibly 1 or 2 backup players, possibly 1 or 2, maybe a defender, and maybe 1 central defensive midfielder. Someone's maybe a Zubimendi type glue figure. I don't think that's all that crazy to say. But I'm also not going to sit here and say, well, the last 3 transfer windows, Liverpool have messed up, and that, as a cycle, shows XYZ about the club. Let's go back through some of those things. First of all, let's go back through some of the big signings. Darwin Núñez, 85 million. Virgil van Dijk, 75 million. Alisson, 65 million. I get that was the Coutinho money. Szoboszlai, 60 million. Keita, 52 million. Yes, I'm reading these. Diaz, 50 million. Jota, 45. Gakpo, 44. Salah, 44. Fabinho, 43. Gravenberch, 38. These are all very big signings, obviously within a decade, so you're probably only breaking that down to about 1 big player per year. But first of all, Jurgen Klopp loves to have a core set of people anyway, so, I mean, how often do you want to completely rotate a team? I don't know. There were plenty of other players that came in during that time for middle prices. But secondly, I think it shows that when FSG do actually want someone, when they actually identify a target that they think, it's not even FSG, the people who work for them, identify a target that they think will actually make a difference to the team, not just a player for the sake of it, not just playing FIFA and saying, oh, I need to sign someone because it's the summer. It's this kind of habitual idea that when it is the transfer window, then you do transfers. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I get that that's the received knowledge, but that isn't the way that we operate as a club. We can't sit here and go, we've spent less than everyone else and done all this. Partially because we haven't spent less than everyone else, though we have spent less than some of the bigger guys. But then our revenue streams are different to those clubs. Our financial model is different to those clubs. Our approach is different to those clubs. Some of those very clubs are now being bought up on PSR and many other charges. Do you want the same thing to happen to Liverpool? I don't know what the goal is here. But Zubimendi definitely helped himself, possibly, to a brand new contract negotiation at Real Sociedad, which is apparently now stalled. I mean, sure, if it's stalled, do I want to go back in for him? Honestly, most probably not. I don't really want another player that doesn't really want to be at Liverpool, or we had to absolutely convince to leave this team. It means that, I mean, even if he loves Liverpool, even if he has a great time, I want players who are going to be committed to the project. I want players that I feel actually want to be at the club, rather than just, yeah, I'm here as a piece, a part of your project. There are players, and certainly when it comes down to Zubimendi, the comparisons with people like Xabi Alonso, all those kind of guys, they remind me of the players that I want as part of my project. It's not that I think I'm too good for a mercenary type, it's that I think I want to feel that the players care about the project, that they care about where their kids are growing up, that they care about at least marginally even think about the geography of the place that they're in. I'm under no impression that Xabi Alonso went out and ate every evening in Liverpool and sort of shook his hands with everyone and was a Che Guevara type character. But I also don't like the feeling that we're just signing people who don't feel like they're going to have a connection with our area. Secondly, thirdly, whatever you want to call it, yes, of course, embarrassment is part of a transfer window. For the last couple of transfer windows, there have been narratives that either people like me have been responsible for crafting or other people in the space, and this is what's annoying me, craft this transfer idea that Liverpool don't want to spend money. They bid 150 million on Caicedo, now, or 110, whatever you want to call it, right? I get it. They didn't get him in the end, so they didn't have to spend that money. And maybe they were just messing with Chelsea in the first place to make them spend more money or doing a favour to Brighton or whatever you want to say. We don't know for sure. But I think that when Liverpool identify targets and they really want them, then yes, they go for them. The one before that was meant to be Jude Bellingham. It was possibly meant to even be Tchouaméni before that. There are plenty of profiles of player. Tchouaméni used Liverpool and other clubs within Europe to get a better deal at Real Madrid. Bellingham used Liverpool and other clubs in Europe to get a better deal at Real Madrid. Zubimendi used Liverpool, Arsenal, Barcelona, and all these different teams to get a better deal at Real Sociedad. Because guess what? These teams are so scared of losing their talent to someone like Liverpool, Manchester United, Man City, all these players. Because they know that as much as they'll get good money for it, they want to keep some of their players. Yes, sometimes that can therefore be humiliating. Yes, sometimes it means that other fans therefore have this narrative that Liverpool are missing out on transfers, aren't getting all the pieces in that they need. And believe me, I understand that. I get that Arne Slot may want to have a couple of extra pieces. Of course, if Liverpool went for this guy, then he will have been part of the process of going for that player. He will have been part of that process of identifying him as the target that you would have wanted and then pressing go on that. Will he do good? Will he do good for you? Yeah, I think I can coach him. Will he upgrade your midfield in some way? Yes, I think we can immediately get results from this guy because that's the only way that Liverpool operate, or it's been the only way that Liverpool operate. And I think we're going to have to look at what our preconceptions are of Liverpool operating. When people keep saying like Liverpool don't want to spend money, FSG don't want to spend money, I get that. But this idea that Liverpool should just be buying players, what feels like almost for the sake of it sometimes, I don't get. And I'm bored of hearing just two sides of this story. You're either an FSG apologist or an FSG in, or it's the other way and you're FSG out. There are fans who of course can sit in the middle and say, actually, we don't know. We want to have a football team that we enjoy watching and we want to support them, but for some weird reason we obsess over these things because guess what? Gets great views, gets great headlines, gets great clicks. And it's a really great way of getting people angry and loaded up against people. And guess most of the people who are running these narratives, the same people who have the contempt for you to say, well, Liverpool won't really do all that. I don't really know what Arne Slot is doing right now. Like, they don't even watch pre-season. They don't even care about the results. All they care about is getting people to phone into their shows, getting people to click on their videos, all these kind of things. They don't know about Liverpool. They've not watched any of the pre-season. Someone the other day started with me and said, did you watch any of the pre-season? What do you mean? Did I watched every minute of the pre-season that I could get my hands on. I think it's weird that people go, oh, you cover the club. Did you watch the pre-season? Yes, of course we did. Was I that impressed by it? I was impressed by the opening gambit of what Arne Slot is doing. I was impressed by these early planting the seed type stages. But what I won't buy into is this idea that if Liverpool don't buy the player that you think specifically works and have a different plan to you for the new striker, new midfielder, new defender, new goalkeeper idea, or whatever it is that you have, then suddenly they aren't doing it right. My 9 to 5 is, 9 to 6, whatever you want to call it, is not to identify those players for Liverpool to then go out there and get. My 9 to 6 is creating content around that, understanding narratives, trying my best to understand clubs, and it should be the same for you if you don't understand football in that way. It's crazy to me that we can sit there and go, why haven't we spent money on this guy? Or even craft a narrative that in a player wanting to stay with his childhood club is somehow humiliating for Liverpool? It doesn't make any sense to me. Of course, Liverpool would have gone for a guy that they thought they could have gotten and wanted. And of course, otherwise, what are you doing the transfer for? Of course, they will have been given some form of encouragement from an agent or from Zubimendi himself, most probably, to go in there and try and make a bid. Of course they will. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. Does this therefore mean that there are a critical few weeks in Liverpool? Yes. Does it mean that Richard Hughes is a bad director of football, or whatever it is you want to call him, or director of football operations? No. Does it mean that he's left with egg on his face? Doesn't look great, but at the same time, if I get the feeling, and when people keep going, oh, well, they've not identified new targets. Liverpool have identified targets. Liverpool, they're not just going to have one list of Zubimendi. By no means are they Manchester United identifying 40 right-backs and then buying Aaron Wan-Bissaka from that list. But they certainly are on the other end of the spectrum, where they go, we only want very specific profiles of player. We understand that this coach wants these things, but we also already have a lot of these assets. Because guess what? Over the last few seasons, they've become relatively well stocked in almost all positions. Centre-back, Liverpool had a dearth of 4 players that they could rotate in those positions at different times. There were injury crises, sure. And I think the Virgil van Dijk situation is a difficult one. But it's very difficult to find someone who's going to sit on the bench behind someone who can start relatively every week of their career. The same goes for the right wing on Mo Salah, and the same goes for getting, like, Kostas Tsimikas is almost a unicorn in this space, because the quality of the player is very high, is very good for a backup player, but at the same time, he's a very good team player. These things are really hard to find. It's very hard to encourage a player to come and sit on a bench behind someone. Hence why we want a new goalkeeper, because we're worried about the future, or we're thinking about the future with Alisson. And we are then going to loan this guy out, or whatever that orientation is. That's the basic idea. Bring him in, then loan him out. For 30 million, guess what? Liverpool have money to spend, and they will spend money. And people are going to, well, it's because they skimped on the deal, or whatever it is. Ultimately, the story that we've been told is that he decided not to leave. Like, Zubimendi decided not to leave. Liverpool still have 30 million to spend on a goalkeeper, apparently, maybe spread over a couple of years. There was a deal where it was like, well, they may have 51 million to spend over a couple of years. These are the constraints within which Liverpool work. And I think some of that will be down to being cognizant of PSR. Some of that will be down to FSG not wanting to lose money, or wanting to make money, or run this as a business on top of that. And as far as I'm concerned, it's better the devil you know, not that they're the devil, but better the devil you know than whatever else it is. Would I want my club to be run like Todd Bowley runs Chelsea? No. Would I want my owners to be like Manchester United? No. Would I particularly like my owners to be like Man City? Not really. So there has to be some form of trade-off, because there are going to be lots of really well-run clubs out there, but there are also going to be a lot of clubs, and within the issues within those clubs, where it doesn't always go smoothly. Real Sociedad this summer, people who are known for bringing through homegrown players, known for doing all of the great things that football clubs do in those areas, will have been having internal issues this year, because Marino's leaving. We're seeing Zubimendi possibly leaving. There's other players that will be leaving possibly, because they bring through the quality and the talent. That's my point here. You can't just sit around and go, we want both sides of it. We want to spend the money, but we want to be the club who do it the right way. We want to not be Man City, but we want to spend cash. We don't want to be the neighbours that are Manchester United, but what we want to do is get the big signing that everyone else wanted. They've had those over the last few years. Liverpool got Cody Gakpo ahead of Manchester United. They got Darwin Núñez ahead of other people who were going for him as well. There were plenty of other people who pulled out of the race. That's my point here. Now, I get the other side of it as well, where you're probably saying to me, well, what about Jurgen Klopp? What about the Klopp year? Klopp covered up for a lot of the issues that FSG created down those years. Possibly. There is a distinct possibility that we find out this season, but there's also a distinct possibility that we've employed a good coach with a good, solid background in football, who may continue to do a lot of the good work that Klopp did in a variation, and that we will come out the other side of that seeing that this is actually a system which can work. And whilst there are going to be times where we want the fun, shiny new plaything, Ryan Gravenberch as a 6, or whoever else that would play as a 6, is a coachable player who can up his game, who can change his game, who can adapt. Because guess what? Players are not just bits that you just plug in and go, got the DM, now that'll work. We got value when we got Wataru Endo last summer. We got value when we got Alexis McAllister ahead of the rest of the market. Alexis McAllister this summer is 60, 70 million. Soboslai, real value. There's plenty of people in our academy that we're currently seeing value for. And the people are going, well, we're only selling, we're spending more time on selling. I don't think that Richard Hughes is sitting down and going, no more transfers right now because I can only think about selling. None of these things make any sense. Maybe you might be incompetent, maybe I might not be as competent and as high functioning as someone like Richard Hughes, so it might be impossible for us to imagine what it is like to be a very high-powered individual who walks into these environments and is doing multiple different things at once. Doesn't mean that everyone is that same way. What I'm saying is there are multiple different narratives here, and it really frustrates me to listen to some of the things that I have to hear over the last few days, which I'm not an FSG apologist or FSGN or whatever it is, right? Of course, I enjoy watching the club. And of course, I'm very grateful to the owners for what it is that they brought about. But at no point do I think to myself, we're having the worst transfer window we've ever had here. Of course, it's frustrating. I'd love to see maybe 1 or 2 more players coming this summer. I'd love to know that there is a successor for Virgil van Dijk. I'd love to know that there is a hookup 6 that we can bring in. But if Liverpool don't profile him in that way, to an extent, our role as supporters, not our job, it's not mandatory, choose whether you do it or not, is to critique that reasonably, because flying off the handle and being toxic about it is not support. That is just hyperbole for your own ideals. And then to work out whether A, we have time to change that situation, or whether we get behind those players and back them. Because guess what? Sitting around and just saying, I don't think we'll be good enough this year, it's not really a great thing for a fan to be saying or doing. I get it, you can be demoralised. But Liverpool, you support Liverpool not just because it becomes part of your daily approach to life, right? You don't just sit around and go, well, we won't win it this season, so who knows, whatever. I'm depressed now, I'm down. That's not Liverpool as a city. That's not Liverpool as a football club, frankly. And whatever you want to say about, well, they're just a big corporate entity, that's not my point here. My point is not that. My point is that whatever the corporate entity is, you can still go in the Kop and you'll find Scousers. You can still go into multiple different stands around that stadium and you will find people who define what Liverpool were 20, 30, 40 years ago and still define what Liverpool is today. I don't claim to be one of those people. I don't live in Liverpool. I've got family there. I've always loved the club since a young age, and I have passion to analyse it and to be part of the narrative and the journey of it. That doesn't mean that I'm a typical Scouser. But I'm bored of hearing people hijack what it is that I think has been a really positive story for the last 10 years of my life and try and nosedive it into some tabloid gutter press thing. It doesn't resonate with me, and I don't feel comfortable hearing it or listening to it. And I'm bored of watching people who don't support my club tell me what I should be thinking. I had to debate someone the other day who said, I think it's going to be like when Sir Alex Ferguson left Manchester United, and Slot will be David Moyes. And I said, why would that be? Why? Can you tell me why that would be? And his breakdown was, well, he's just a successor to a great man, isn't he? And I thought, that's indicative, that shows the narrative and the idea and all those kind of things that you have in your head because of what Sir Alex did. Now, of course, what we may find is that there are a lot of holes and issues at the club. Say we did have Klopp, maybe we would have gotten Zubimendi because maybe Klopp makes the final compelling point. We don't know that though. Maybe it goes the other way. Maybe Zubimendi goes, I don't want to play in the Klopp midfield. I don't think we'd have been going for Zubimendi this summer if we'd have been with Klopp. But I think the point is, if we'd have gone for a 6 like that, didn't happen last summer, maybe because the profile wasn't there, didn't happen the summer before, Klopp didn't manage to get Chouameni over the line, Klopp didn't manage to get Bellingham over the line, not that that's a particular surprise to me or a deficiency of his, but it proves a specific point that I'm trying to make. And the point goes, you don't get it if you just think that this is about just getting any transfer in. It's frustrating to look at and to watch just people walking around and blaming everyone else. And it's particularly annoying to hear Liverpool fans, genuine Liverpool fans, attacking the club for no reason, for very valid reasons, but then thinking that is the end. Like, the end is just you criticising, and then we're like, cool, well, we criticise the club, now we're in a bad place. All right, move on. It doesn't work like that. Anyway, appreciate you guys. If you are interested in hearing more, then I'm going to start a membership on this channel. I'm going to be doing my season predictions on this channel and on my other channel tomorrow, and I will chat to you guys again real soon right here on the Laurence and McKenna on LFC channel. Much love.